The cold winter air bit at Marcus Whitfield's exposed skin as he fumbled with his house keys. 3 in the morning and the suburban street was silent except for the occasional gust of wind rustling bare tree branches. His fingers, still carrying the faint scent of unfamiliar perfume, trembled slightly. The front door swung open to darkness, unusual for this hour. Elena typically left the hallway light on when he worked late. "Elena?" he called out, voice cutting through the stillness. "Sorry I'm late. The client meeting ran longer than expected." No response, just the hollow echo of his words bouncing off walls. Marcus flicked on the lights, revealing their immaculate living room exactly as it had been that morning, except for a single envelope propped against the crystal vase on the coffee table. His name written in his wife's elegant handwriting. "Elena?" he called again, louder this time, anxiety creeping into his voice. He took the stairs 2 at a time, bursting into their bedroom. The bed was made, untouched. He rushed to the nursery door, hesitating for a moment before pushing it open. Empty. The crib where his 6-week-old daughter Olivia should have been sleeping lay bare, the pink elephant mobile swaying gently above it. Marcus stumbled backward, his world tilting as he fumbled for his phone. His thumb hovered over Elena's contact when his gaze fell back to the envelope downstairs. With rising dread, he returned to the living room, tore open the envelope, and unfolded the single page inside. "I know everything. We're gone. Don't try to find us." 72 hours earlier. "She's finally down," Elena whispered, easing the nursery door closed. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, but she smiled as she joined Marcus on the sofa. 6 straight hours last night. I think we might be turning a corner with her sleep." Marcus nodded absently, eyes fixed on his laptop screen. "That's great, honey." Elena studied her husband's profile. The sharp jawline she'd once traced with her fingertips, now tense with stress. 6 weeks into parenthood had changed them both, but Marcus seemed increasingly distant, as though occupying a different universe than the one she and Olivia shared. "Your mother called. She wants to visit this weekend," Elena said, tucking her legs beneath her. "I told her it would be nice to have the help." "This weekend?" Marcus looked up, alarm flashing across his features. "I've got that conference in Philadelphia, remember? The one I mentioned last month." Elena frowned. "You never mentioned any conference." "I definitely did. It's been on the calendar for weeks." He turned his laptop toward her, pointing to a calendar entry labeled Regional Financial Summit, Philadelphia. "See? Friday through Sunday." "Oh," Elena said, the single syllable heavy with doubt. "I guess I forgot with all the baby brain." Marcus softened, setting his laptop aside. "Hey, it's just 2 nights. You've been amazing with Olivia." He pulled her close, planting a kiss on her forehead. "When I get back, we'll have a proper date night. Your mother can babysit." Elena nodded against his chest, ignoring the subtle trace of unfamiliar scent clinging to his collar. Something floral that definitely wasn't her shampoo. Later that night, as Marcus slept soundly beside her, Elena stared at the ceiling, counting the minutes between Olivia's soft breaths through the baby monitor. The nagging suspicion that had been growing for weeks crystallized into something more substantial. The next morning, Marcus left for work with his usual rushed kiss and promise to be home by 7. Elena waited until his car disappeared down the street before retrieving her laptop. She opened their shared cloud storage account, the one they'd created to share wedding photos years ago and had since forgotten. Most recently viewed files: hotel confirmation, the Grand Philadelphia. She clicked it open. A single room, king bed, reserved for 2 nights. Elena's name wasn't on the reservation. She checked their joint credit card statement next. Regular purchases mingled with transactions she didn't recognize. Dinner for 2 at restaurants she'd never visited. A charge from a jewelry store last month, nothing had arrived for her, and a pattern of Uber rides late at night when Marcus claimed to be working. Her hands shook as she set the laptop aside. The baby monitor crackled with Olivia's soft fussing. Elena moved through the nursery routine on autopilot, changing, feeding, soothing, while her mind raced through possibilities, each more painful than the last. By afternoon, she'd convinced herself she was overreacting. Perhaps the hotel was for a colleague. Maybe he was planning a surprise. 6 years of marriage deserved the benefit of doubt. Her phone chimed with a text from Marcus. Meeting running late. Don't wait up. Elena stared at the message, then at Olivia sleeping peacefully in her swing. She made her decision. She called her closest friend, Rachel. Can you come watch Olivia for a couple of hours? There's something I need to do. An hour later, Elena sat in her parked car outside Marcus's office building. The financial district was quieting as the workday ended. She watched employees stream out, scanning for her husband's familiar silhouette. At 7:15, Marcus emerged, not alone, but with a woman Elena had never seen before, tall, elegant, with flowing auburn hair. The woman laughed at something Marcus said, her hand lingering on his arm longer than any professional interaction warranted. Elena's heart hammered against her ribs as she watched them walk to a nearby restaurant. Through the window, she observed their easy intimacy, heads bent close together, fingers occasionally brushing across the table. She could have confronted them there. Instead, she drove home in silence, her mind cycling through 6 years of marriage, trying to pinpoint when the cracks had first appeared. Was it after Olivia's difficult birth? Before? Had she been blind? Or simply unwilling to see? When she returned home, Rachel immediately sensed something was wrong. Elena, what happened? Elena shook her head, forcing a smile. Nothing, just needed some air. How was she? An angel, Rachel replied, studying her friend with concern. Are you sure you're okay? I'm fine, Elena lied, accepting the sleeping Olivia from Rachel's arms. Just tired. After Rachel left, Elena sat in the nursery rocking chair, cradling her daughter against her chest. What are we going to do? She whispered into Olivia's soft hair. The next day passed in a blur of infant care and quiet determination. While Olivia napped, Elena made phone calls to her bank, to a lawyer who specialized in family law, to her sister in Colorado. She packed essentials into 2 suitcases, hiding them in the back of her closet. When Marcus texted that he'd be home, for dinner she replied with casual normalcy, Great, making your favorite pasta. Over dinner, Elena watched her husband eat the meal she'd prepared, laughing about office politics and complaining about his upcoming conference. I've packed your blue suit, she said, twirling pasta around her fork. The one you wore to my sister's wedding. You're the best, Marcus replied, reaching across to squeeze her hand. The casual tenderness of the gesture made her stomach clench. I don't know how I got so lucky. Elena smiled tightly. Neither do I. After dinner, while Marcus showered, Elena checked his phone. The password, their wedding date, hadn't changed in 6 years. The evidence was all there. Hundreds of texts with someone saved as Veronica W., intimate messages, plans for the weekend, promises of a future together. And then, a text from earlier, that day that made Elena's blood freeze. Have you told her yet? We can't keep living like this. She deserves to know before we take this further. Marcus's reply. After the weekend, I promise. Elena replaced the phone exactly where she'd found it and retreated to the nursery, where she held Olivia until her tears dried. The day of Marcus's conference arrived with deceptive normalcy. He packed his overnight bag while Elena prepared Olivia's morning bottle. I'll call you when I get to the hotel, he said, kissing the top of her head. Try to get some sleep while I'm gone. Elena nodded, not trusting her voice. She accepted, his kiss breathing in his cologne, the one she'd given him last Christmas. I love you, he said at the door, his overnight bag slung over his shoulder. Drive safely, she replied, watching him walk to his car without looking back. Elena waited exactly 30 minutes before springing into action. She retrieved the packed suitcases, loaded them and Olivia's travel crib into her SUV, and made one last walk through the home they'd built together. On the coffee table, she placed an envelope with Marcus's name and the note she'd rewritten a dozen times before settling on the simplest truth. "I know everything. We're gone. Don't try to find us." She considered adding more, about her heartbreak, about his betrayal, about how she'd found receipts for diamond earrings she'd never received, or how she'd seen him with the auburn-haired woman. But in the end, those 6 words said everything. With Olivia secured in her car seat, Elena pulled out of the driveway for the last time. Instead of turning toward her sisters in Colorado, however, she drove to the Grand Philadelphia, the hotel, where her husband was spending the weekend with his mistress. The hotel lobby was elegant, all marble and crystal. Elena approached the front desk with Olivia in her arms. "I'd like to speak with my husband, Marcus Whitfield. He's staying here for the conference," she said, her voice remarkably steady. The receptionist typed on his computer. "Mr. Whitfield checked in about an hour ago. Would you like me to ring his room?" "That would be wonderful," Elena replied with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. As the receptionist dialed, Elena spotted them, Marcus and the auburn-haired woman from the restaurant, emerging from the elevator, hands intertwined. They were laughing, completely absorbed in each other until Marcus looked up and locked eyes with Elena. The color drained from his face. "Elena," he breathed, frozen in place. The woman beside him tensed, her gaze darting between them before understanding dawned in her eyes. "Is this her?" the woman asked, her voice surprisingly soft. "Is this your wife?" Elena stepped forward, Olivia squirming against her chest. "Yes, I'm his wife. And this is his daughter." She turned to Marcus. "I thought you should see us one last time before we disappear from your life." Marcus stepped toward them, panic etched across his features. "Elena, wait. I can explain—" "Mr. Whitfield," the receptionist interrupted. "I have your room on the line. Shall I tell them you'll call back?" The absurdity of the moment, standing in a luxury hotel lobby with her infant daughter while her husband's mistress watched in horror, almost made Elena laugh. Instead, she turned to the woman. "Veronica, right? He was planning to tell me about you after this weekend. Did you know he has a 6-week-old daughter? Did you know he bought you earrings with our joint account?" Veronica's eyes widened. "Marcus told me you were separated. That you'd agreed to divorce months ago, before the baby was even born." Now Elena did laugh, a sharp, painful sound. "Of course he did." Marcus stepped closer, hands outstretched. "Elena, please. Let's talk about this privately." "There's nothing to talk about," Elena replied, backing away. "I just wanted to see it for myself. To look you in the eye while you lied to me one more time." She turned to leave. But Veronica called after her. "Wait." The woman reached into her purse, pulled out a small jewelry box, and extended it toward Elena. "These belong to you, I think." Elena stared at the box, recognition flickering as she remembered the credit card charge. "Keep them. They were meant for you." "I don't want anything he bought with your money," Veronica replied, placing the box on a nearby table. "And for what it's worth, I didn't know about any of it." Elena nodded once, acknowledging the woman's words without absolving her. Then she walked out of the hotel into the bright afternoon sunlight, Marcus calling her name behind her. By the time Marcus returned home that night, having followed Elena's SUV until she lost him in downtown traffic, the house was silent and still. He found Elena's note where she'd left it, read it with shaking hands, then sank onto the sofa. His phone buzzed with another text from Veronica. "Don't contact me again. We're done." Hours passed as Marcus sat motionless, the magnitude of his actions crashing over him in relentless waves. He'd lost everything: his wife, his daughter, his mistress, in a single catastrophic moment of his own making. It wasn't until dawn broke that he thought to check Elena's belongings. Her closet was half empty, all of Olivia's favorite toys gone. In the bathroom, her toothbrush remained, a small forgotten soldier in the wreckage of their marriage. Marcus called Elena repeatedly throughout the day, each call going straight to voicemail. He texted apologies, please, promises to change. He called her friends, her co-workers, even her mother, who hung up after telling him exactly what she thought of him. 3 days later, Elena finally answered his call. "Stop calling everyone I know," she said, her voice cold and distant. "You're making this worse for yourself." "Elena, please," Marcus begged. "Tell me where you are. We need to talk about this. We're safe." "That's all you need to know. She's my daughter too," he said, desperation edging into his voice. "You should have thought about that before you started planning your new life with Veronica." The silence between them stretched, heavy with unspoken accusations. "I made a terrible mistake," Marcus finally said. "The worst mistake of my life. But I love you and Olivia more than anything. Please come home so we can work through this." Elena's laugh was hollow. "You don't destroy the people you love, Marcus. You don't lie to them for months, cheat on them while they're recovering from childbirth, plan to leave them." "It wasn't like that," he protested. "Things with Veronica, they just happened. I was going to end it." "By telling me after your romantic weekend together? That's not ending it. That's leaving me for her." Marcus had no answer for this truth. "I saw the texts, Marcus. I know you were planning to tell me this weekend. I know you've been seeing her since before Olivia was born." Another silence, this one filled with the weight of his betrayal. "Where are you?" he asked again, softer now. "I'm staying with a friend," Elena replied. "I filed for temporary full custody and a restraining order, citing emotional abuse and abandonment." "What?" "Elena, you can't— I have documentation of everything, Marcus. The affair, the money you spent on her, the plans you made to leave us. My lawyer says the judge will likely grant the order, at least temporarily." Marcus felt the ground shifting beneath him. "You planned this," he realized. "You knew before you came to the hotel." "I've suspected for weeks," Elena admitted. "But seeing you together, hearing her say you told her we were separated, that's when I knew there was nothing left to save." "There is," Marcus insisted. "Elena, we have 6 years together. A daughter, a home. You can't throw that away because of one mistake." "It wasn't one mistake. It was hundreds of choices, day after day, to betray me. To betray us." Her voice caught. "Do you know what it feels like to feed your newborn at 3 in the morning while wondering if your husband is with another woman? To check his phone while he showers, terrified of what you'll find but needing to know?" Marcus closed his eyes against the image her words conjured. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "Sorry isn't enough." Elena's voice hardened. "The hearing is next Wednesday. Your lawyer can contact mine with any questions." "Elena." "Wait." "Goodbye, Marcus." The line went dead, leaving Marcus alone in their empty house, surrounded by the remnants of the life he'd destroyed. 6 months later, the coffee shop was neutral territory, suggested by their mediator as a place for Elena and Marcus to meet before their court appearance. Elena arrived first, selecting a table near the window where she could watch for Marcus while keeping an eye on Olivia in her stroller. At 6 months old, Olivia had grown from the tiny newborn Marcus had last held into a chubby-cheeked, curious baby who studied the world with wide eyes that mirrored her father's. Elena spotted Marcus the moment he entered, noted how he'd lost weight, how the confident stride she'd once admired had diminished to something more hesitant. He scanned the coffee shop until his gaze landed on her, then on the stroller beside her. "Elena," he said, approaching cautiously. "Thank you for agreeing to meet." She nodded, gesturing to the seat across from her. "Would you like to see her before we talk?" Relief flooded his features. "Yes, please." Elena turned the stroller so Marcus could see Olivia, who was contentedly chewing on a soft toy. His eyes filled with tears as he crouched to her level. "Hi, Olivia," he whispered. "Do you remember me?" "I'm your dad." Olivia regarded him curiously before offering a gummy smile that made Marcus's breath catch. "She's so beautiful," he said, glancing up at Elena. "She has your smile." "But your eyes," Elena replied quietly. "And your stubbornness." Marcus returned to his seat, keeping one hand on the stroller. "How have you been?" "Managing," Elena said. My sister's been a huge help. I've been working remotely for my firm, and we found a good daycare for Olivia 3 days a week. Marcus nodded, absorbing the details of a life continuing without him. I've completed the parenting classes, he said, and the therapy sessions. All 8 weeks. That's good. An awkward silence settled between them, 6 months of separation creating a chasm neither knew how to bridge. I got your emails, Elena finally said, about selling the house. I thought it was best, Marcus replied. Too many memories there for both of us. The real estate agent thinks we can get a good price, even in this market. We can split the proceeds, give you a fresh start wherever you want. Elena studied him, searching for the calculated manipulator she'd expected to find. Instead, she saw only exhaustion and regret. Veronica reached out to me, she said, watching his reaction carefully. About 2 months ago, Marcus stiffened. What did she want? To apologize. She seemed sincere. Said she'd had no idea about me, about Olivia. That when she saw us at the hotel, she realized immediately what kind of man you really were. Marcus winced, but didn't argue. She was right. She also said you'd been trying to contact her, even after everything. He shook his head. Not to reconcile. To apologize. To take full responsibility. I needed her to know that none of it was your fault. He met Elena's gaze directly. I've been trying to make amends wherever I can. Elena absorbed this information, comparing it against the narrative she'd constructed during their months apart. The restraining order expires next week, she said. My lawyer advised against renewing it, given your compliance with all the court's requirements. I won't contest whatever you decide, Marcus said. But I'd like to be part of Olivia's life, whatever that looks like. Weekend visits, supervised if necessary. I'll follow whatever rules you set, Olivia began fussing in her stroller. Elena lifted her out, cradling her against her shoulder with practiced ease. Would you like to hold her? She asked after a moment. Marcus's eyes widened. Can I? Elena passed Olivia across the table. Marcus accepted her with trembling hands, his expression a mixture of awe and fear as he settled his daughter against his chest. Hey there, little one, he whispered, voice thick with emotion. I've missed you so much. Olivia studied him with solemn eyes before reaching for his face with curious fingers. Elena watched them together, her heart a complicated knot of emotions. The man before her had caused her unimaginable pain, had betrayed her in the most fundamental ways. Yet he was also the father of her child, a man she had once loved enough to marry, to build a life with, to create a family. I don't know if I'll ever forgive you, she said honestly. But Olivia deserves to know her father, so we'll find a way forward for her sake. Marcus nodded, tears spilling onto his cheeks as Olivia patted his face. I don't deserve forgiveness, he said quietly, but I promise you both, I will spend every day proving I can be better. Be worthy of being in her life, of being someone you don't regret allowing near her. Elena felt the first crack in the wall she'd built around her heart. Not forgiveness, not yet, but perhaps the beginning of healing. One day at a time, she said, reaching across the table to gently wipe a tear from Olivia's cheek where it had fallen from her father's eye. Outside, spring sunlight broke through clouds, casting long shadows across their table, 3 figures leaning toward each other in a fragile tableau of reconciliation. Not the family they once were, nor the family they might have been, but something new emerging from the wreckage of betrayal. Imperfect, cautious, but possible. As Elena watched Marcus whisper promises to their daughter, she remembered something her sister had told her during those first devastating days after she'd fled their home. Sometimes the strongest families are forged in the fire of near destruction. Sometimes what grows back after the burning is more resilient than what stood before. She didn't know if that would be true for them. But as Olivia's laughter filled the space between her and Marcus, the first sound they'd shared as parents in 6 months, Elena allowed herself to hope that from these ashes, something worthwhile might yet emerge. Not the ending she'd once imagined for her story, but perhaps not the end at all. Just a difficult turning point in a longer, more complicated narrative. One they would write together, one careful page at a time.
And that wraps up today's story. Now we want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments, and let's see how far these stories reach. If this story moved you or gave you chills, give it a like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories. One last thing, rate the story from 1 to 10 in the comments. Your feedback helps us bring you even better ones next time. Thanks for watching. We appreciate you being part of this storytelling journey.